inspired by real-life events. Narrator Daniel Mercer woke up at 3:22 a.m. inside a sealed global media regulation T beneath Los Angeles, with emergency information integrity alerts flashing across massive real-time public sentiment monitoring walls, and an international communications director saying, "Your authorization sequence initiated an unsanctioned global narrative synchronization event across multiple media and social influence systems." And in that instant, his entire world collapsed, because just hours earlier, he was a senior information systems strategist working for a multinational digital communications consortium responsible for monitoring social media stability, AI-driven content moderation networks, and large-scale public information infrastructure. And now he was being treated as the central cause of a classified information crisis that nearly triggered synchronized public unrest across multiple countries. And the first shock wasn't fear. It was disbelief so intense, it felt like even reality itself had stopped belonging to ordinary people. Because Daniel's entire career was built on preventing misinformation's escalation, stabilizing communication systems, and ensuring global information networks remained balanced under political and social pressure. But now, those same systems were defining him as the operator who initiated a cascading global narrative override he had no memory of activating. And within hours, his media security clearance was suspended, his biometric communication keys frozen under international digital governance law, his access to all public influence systems revoked, and internal sentiment telemetry logs labeled him as primary anomaly in distributed global narrative escalation event. And Daniel sat in the interrogation chamber, replaying his last operational cycle, remembering public sentiment calibration audits, AI moderation synchronization checks, misinformation containment protocols, and then a gap, an unexplained missing execution window between 12:04 a.m. and 1:47 a.m., where global information systems showed his authentication profile, issuing high-level narrative alignment commands across multiple sovereign communication networks simultaneously. But he had no memory of initiating any of those actions. And when investigators showed him synchronized influence, telemetry, displaying autonomous content, amplification shifts, public opinion trend reversals, and emergency information containment responses unfolding under his credentials across global media infrastructures, Daniel immediately said, "That's not me. I never activated those systems." But the lead communications director replied coldly, "The network has already verified complete execution integrity across all narrative layers." And that sentence shattered his understanding, because it meant identity inside global information systems was no longer about truth or human intention. It was about validated execution consensus across machines capable of shaping what billions of people believe in real time. And by sunrise, he was released under continuous international surveillance, while global communications intelligence networks had already internally classified him as a high-risk social destabilization vector. And outside the facility, Daniel stood beneath the pale Los Angeles dawn, watching giant digital billboards flicker across empty streets, while invisible algorithms silently controlled what the world saw, shared, feared, and trusted every second. And that night, he received a message through an encrypted media relay saying, "If you want to understand the synchronization event, come to Sub-Level Archive Echo 11, beneath the abandoned Broadcast Intelligence Center. No devices." And despite knowing it could permanently erase whatever remained of his life, He went because when a system defines you as the trigger of global reality distortion, truth becomes more important than survival. And deep beneath the abandoned broadcast center, he met Dr. Evelyn Carter, a former narrative systems architect who specialized in information integrity and mass influence anomaly reconstruction. And she didn't soften the reality. She immediately showed him reconstructed narrative flow pathways and said, your identity wasn't physically present inside the communication execution layer. It was replicated through a live authentication relay embedded inside the global information network. And Daniel instantly said, then I can prove I didn't do it. But Evelyn replied, you're still thinking like someone inside human communication systems, not like someone inside autonomous influence infrastructures where execution itself becomes accepted reality once public consensus stabilizes around it. And she explained that the incident wasn't a single rogue media command, but a coordinated manipulation of global narrative systems where authentication signatures could be mirrored into distributed influence frameworks, allowing massive public opinion cascades to propagate under legitimate operator identities, while erasing conflicting moderation logs across redundant communication layers. And Daniel's profile had been selected because his operational history showed exceptional stability across global information systems with near-zero anomaly deviation, making him the perfect attribution anchor for rapid containment of a globally catastrophic narrative event. And suddenly the case wasn't just about misinformation. It was about identity replication inside infrastructure, capable of shaping humanity's collective perception of reality itself. And Evelyn offered him a choice: step away and let the system finalize him as the architect of the global narrative collapse, or help her trace the internal communication relay chain before it was permanently overwritten by automated information containment protocols designed to preserve social stability at any cost. And Daniel stood in silence, listening to distant server vibrations beneath the underground archive, thinking about how modern civilization no longer depended only on truth, but on systems deciding which truths survive visibility, thinking about years of engineering work spent trying to prevent exactly this kind of mass perception manipulation, and thinking about how fragile identity becomes when even belief itself can be reassigned as an executable command. And finally he said, if my identity has already been used to manipulate global information systems without my consent, then I have nothing left to protect except the truth itself. And that decision pulled him into a hidden layer of worldwide communications infrastructure where nothing remained stable. Because every moderation log they analyzed was actively recalculating itself in real time. Every influence trace they followed kept shifting, as if the entire narrative network itself was adapting to their investigation. And soon, they discovered the breach wasn't foreign propaganda, but internal privilege abuse involving a senior narrative strategist who had been quietly rerouting authentication sessions across psychological capitalist influence arrays to conceal global unauthorized encroom. And Daniel's identity had been selected as the central attribution anchor because it aligned perfectly with automated narrative incident resolution systems designed for rapid containment of politically catastrophic social instability. And one night, while analyzing live global sentiment telemetry streams from an isolated offline media node, Daniel saw something that completely shattered his understanding. His credentials were actively initiating real-time narrative amplification across across global information systems. While he was physically disconnected from all networks, and Evelyn immediately said, "They're continuously simulating your identity inside the narrative layer to preserve the operational story." And Daniel realized he wasn't just being blamed after the event, he was being continuously reconstructed inside a live information system capable of shaping human perception itself. And pressure escalated rapidly as anonymous containment directives began appearing on secured channels, instructing him to terminate investigation or face permanent classification as an international information threat entity. And sleep disappeared completely, trust collapsed entirely, and even silence felt like monitored psychological feedback. And at one breaking point, Daniel whispered, "I thought media systems existed to inform humanity, but maybe they exist to decide which version of reality humanity is allowed to emotionally survive." And Evelyn replied, "Systems don't preserve truth, they preserve social continuity." And that realization changed everything inside him, because he stopped trying to defend his identity and started focusing only on exposing the mechanism. And as they dug deeper, they uncovered encrypted relay nodes inside global communication infrastructure, continuously generating synthetic narrative histories to distribute blame across multiple operational identity profiles in real time. And Daniel's profile had been amplified as the primary attribution point because it minimized global panic and allowed rapid closure of the narrative crisis without exposing deeper corruption inside worldwide influence systems. And when they finally compiled enough verified encrypted evidence to trigger international communications oversight escalation, containment protocols activated immediately, attempting to erase sentiment histories across mirrored global media systems worldwide. And Evelyn said, "This is where most people are permanently absorbed into official versions of reality itself." And Daniel replied, "Then I'll be the anomaly they can't silence." And together they transmitted secured evidence chains to independent international oversight authorities, while preserving decentralized encrypted backups across isolated communication nodes. And within days, the investigation escalated into a worldwide information control corruption probe, exposing identity replication abuse, autonomous narrative manipulation, and coordinated perception system exploitation across governments, corporations, and media intelligence agencies. And arrests followed within senior narrative architecture divisions. And when it was over, Daniel stood alone beneath the glowing skyline of Los Angeles, watching endless streams of digital content flow silently across billions of screens as if nothing had ever happened. That the most dangerous truth about advanced systems is not that they fail, but that they can assign failure to a single identity and make it appear emotionally undeniable. And a week later, when he met Evelyn for the last time beneath the dim glow of dormant broadcast arrays, she asked him, "What did this change in you?" And Daniel looked at the endless streams of information flooding the world and said, "It showed me that identity inside systems is never truth. It is assigned control." And she asked, "And what did you gain?" And after a long silence, he replied, "The understanding that truth doesn't survive inside controlled narrative systems. It survives only in the people who refuse to accept a version of themselves generated to protect the stability of perception itself." And as he walked away alone into the quiet California morning, beneath a world still silently shaped by invisible narratives, he finally understood the deepest reality of his journey. That sometimes life doesn't destroy you directly. It quietly assigns you the collapse of reality itself and waits to see if you accept the system's version of truth. But real survival begins the moment you refuse to become the identity a system creates to control what humanity is allowed to believe.